Hi guys, if you're interested in this content, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in private coaching, go to www.coachcat.org. In this video, what I'm going to talk about is some signs that you might be ready to date after narcissistic abuse. And, for one, it takes a long time. You've got to do some healing. If you got out of a toxic relationship with a cluster B, it is not an easy thing to heal from. It takes time, much more so, I would say, than a typical breakup. And this is sort of an indicator, at least you're ready to go from sort of more casual dating to something more serious, some more serious commitment. One is that you're engaging in really good self-care, and that could look like exercise, eating well, taking care of your personal responsibilities, getting therapy, and you've done a lot of the work around that. Have you mastered self-compassion, or are you feeling a lot of self-compassion? Is the voice in your head a kind, warm, calm, loving voice, or is it the inner critic that's constantly criticizing you? So of course the inner critic comes up, but are you able to sort of squash it when it comes up? Are you able to be compassionate and loving to yourself and realize that you did the best you could do? And are you able to forgive? And is that voice in your head, the predominant voice, this kind voice? And are you able to, again, if the inner critic comes up, you're able to go, hey, you had your 5 minutes for today, you're done for the day, peanut gallery. So that's an indicator. And because if you have not, and if the inner critic is the one that is running the show, then dating is going to be potentially very anxiety provoking for you. Another sign is, can you talk about your trauma? Can you tell your story? And can you tell it almost as if it's happened to someone else, almost as if it's in the third person? And I don't mean like in a disassociative way. I mean, are you able to sort of tell your story calmly, matter-of-factly, without getting that emotional charge, without getting those feelings of anxiety or anger or whatever the predominant feelings that you were dealing with, where you don't have that super, super emotional charge? That's a really good indicator that you've integrated your trauma. If you listen to Pete Walker, he talks a lot about this, about being able to tell your story in a calm, sort of rational, not overly emotionally charged way. And that definitely takes time. So if you can tell it with relative calmness, without disassociating or without getting horribly triggered, that is a very good sign. If you cannot freely talk about it, if you need to stuff it, if you need to pretend that it didn't happen, if you need to, if you have this strong aversion to communicating about it, that's not a good sign. If you can't talk about it in a calm fashion, as if it was something that happened to almost like another person. If you need to ignore it, you can't talk about it, and again, a strong aversion, that's a sign that you're probably not ready to start dating. Pete Walker talks about your ability to talk about it in an almost objective fashion, calmly and without active triggers, means that you have really integrated that trauma and you've done a lot of work around it, you've dealt with it, and it is a very strong sign of healing. If you read Pete Walker's book, from Surviving to Thriving, Healing from Complex PTSD, it's a very good book. So again, if you can't talk about it, you probably are not ready to date. Can you see your part? Are you able to see how you contributed to the issues? And I get it. If you were with a disordered person or an abuser or a toxic person, it can be very difficult to see your part, especially if in your mind it's, 80% their fault and 20% yours or whatever. But are you able to see how you contributed to the issues? Are you able to look at yourself and be like, see what your key mistakes were? Mine were, I ignored red flags. I engaged in codependent behavior. I didn't set and keep my boundaries. I wasn't clear on what my sort of moral code was, and so I let it get push. Or I was able to communicate the boundary, but I didn't stick with my own boundaries. I didn't have I didn't clearly communicate some of my expectations and stick to them. I got bamboozled by strong attraction, and I ignored the red flags. I also, I can see a lot of my part. And so I think it's very important that you're able to see what your part was. It might have been, a lot of codependent, thinking that you could change somebody, thinking you could fix somebody, thinking, falling in love with potential, all of those things. And what's your self-talk? Are you talking to yourself? When you talk about it, are you filled with guilt, shame, remorse, or self-recrimination? If so, you're probably not healed enough. When you're ready to sort of easily release the pain, memories, the rage, and the grief, are you in a state of relative calm? Are you stuck in the story? And it doesn't mean you got to be able to tell your story and have it integrated and have a calm discussion about it. No problem. You should be able to do that. But are you stuck in the story? That means when you get into the story, do you have this strong emotional charge where it's almost as if it's happening in real time? That's a good sign that you're probably not ready to date. How's your brain? Are you still ruminating? Are you obsessing? Are you feeling a lot of resentment? Are you having a really hard time letting go? It should be to a place where the emotional charge is very calm for the most part. Or if you get an emotional charge, if you get triggered, you have a sense of confidence that soon the trigger is going to pass and you're going to be back into a state of homeostasis. And do you have the confidence that one day you're going to be almost, if not all the way completely healed? I'm to that place where I know that I'm going to be completely healed from this. And this is like the best thing in some ways that ever happened to me, because it forced me to deal with my codependence. It forced me to deal with the fact that I let my boundaries get pushed. It forced me to deal with the fact that I need to get very clear on my boundaries, set them, communicate them, hold them. And if they are violated, I have a consequence and I stick to my consequence. Am I able to know what my standards are? Do I know what I'm looking for and what I want in myself and a partner? Do I have a strong moral code? Do I stick to my ethics, my integrity? Am I a person of my word? Do my actions match my words? Get really clear on what your morals are, your boundaries, your standards, and everyone's got different ones. That's totally fine, but get clear on what yours are and what behaviors you will and will not tolerate. If you want monogamy, then don't date somebody who isn't into monogamy. That's just not holding your boundary. If you want, long-term, lifelong commitment, don't date somebody who isn't in a place where that's the same thing they want. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them at all. It doesn't even mean, maybe they want that in the future, but they're just not there yet. That's fine too. It doesn't mean that there's anything bad about that person. It just means that you want this thing and they want this thing, and you guys are not on the same page. And be able to be really clear with upholding what your standards are. And if you get to the place where you're not resisting letting go, like in the beginning, your brain is ruminating, you're stuck, you're holding on, you're in that really toxic place, and it's really hard to let go. But when you get to this place where you want to let go, where you're willing to let go, where you're not resistant, that's a good sign. And then do you have confidence that even if you get an emotional flashback, you're going to be able to manage it, you're going to be able to self-regulate and get to the other side of it to a state of calm? And, do you trust yourself enough to be able to identify red flags? And I don't even mean red flags of a narcissist or sociopath or psychopath. I mean red flags that don't work for you. Are you clear on whether it's your paranoia or if it's a legitimate red flag? And are you in this place where you're starting to trust yourself? You're starting to trust your own intuition, and you're starting to set and maintain and communicate and uphold your boundaries. And do you know what your truth is? Do you know what your core values are? You don't ignore red flags, even if you were overwhelmed by an intense attraction. And you might a little bit at first, but then you got to really get back to, setting and holding your boundaries. And are you starting to trust yourself? Are you giving yourself a chance to know that you are confident and that you can trust yourself and you can trust your intuition? And what are some of the red flags? We've gone over them a million times, but there's minimal investment. You're making all the investment, they're making very little. Are you noticing that they're seeking supply rather than building a genuine connection? Is this person open and authentic and honest about where they're coming from? Is there a lot of flattery? Is the sex rushed? Is there too much too soon? Are their actions not matching their words? These are just some of the signs, but there's many, many more. Do you feel self-forgiveness and even forgiveness towards the toxic person? Are you feeling some compassion and forgiveness towards that person, or are you still in a lot of anger? And if you get to the place, and that doesn't mean you ever have to have tea with them. It doesn't mean you condone what they did. Forgiveness is just in your heart. You can look at them with some level of compassion, and maybe even, for me, it's a lot of pity. I see, I have pity and some compassion in my heart, and that's a big change for me. Do you forgive yourself for making the mistakes and being less than perfect and not seeing red flags and ignoring red flags? Do you forgive yourself for letting yourself be mistreated? Sorry about these stupid allergies. Are you feeling warmth toward yourself rather than resentment? Are you feeling self-forgiveness? Are you not spending much time ruminating? The thoughts come in, you might have them, and then they pass. Are you able to set clean boundaries? Are you feeling more open to new experiences and you're not a closed system where you're completely paranoid and you don't let anyone in? Are you able to articulate what your standards are? Are you able to know what your standards are and clearly articulate them to the person or people that you're trying to date? And, because in the beginning of this, when you're going through this, you have no idea what you want. You have no idea what your standards are. You have no idea what you're looking for. You're just terrified. Do you have a clear vision for yourself, for your future, and what you would like in a partner and in a relationship? Do you know what you want? And are you clear on that? And are you able to articulate that? Are you engaging in self-compassion, self-love, and self-forgiveness? This is the last message I want to say about this, about dating. The key, I think, here is you become the right person. You become your champion rather than looking for a champion. You become your own best friend. You start trusting yourself. You start relying on your intuition. You become your own knight in shining armor, or mistress in shining armor. You're the one who's going to save you. You in collaboration with, I believe, with God, you are going to save you. And it's not up to another person to fix you or to save you or to make it all better. That is your job. And you're the one who's going to self-parent, and you're the one who's going to protect yourself, love yourself, and engage in radical self-care and incredible self-compassion. And, if you're not sort of to this place, then you're probably not ready to date. So maybe make a list of what your standards are, what your moral code is, what your boundaries are, what you're looking for in an ideal partner. These are just some things to consider before you start trying to date again. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.